other than directed at this part, maybe about traffic or the new fire station, those kinds of things, that tonight's not the night for that. I want to stay focused on the park. But June 6th at 6 o'clock at Windermere High School, we're going to be having our Horizon West Town Hall meeting, and we will have traffic engineering there, we will have planning there, the sheriff's office will be there, the school board will be there. Every question you have about what's going on in your community, we can answer there. But if you would do me a favor and make sure that we keep focused on the park tonight, because I want to make sure that we make the most of this time. And again, June 6th, Windermere High School, 6 o'clock. If you have any questions or any concerns that don't relate to the park, that's the venue for it. If it's something so urgent you cannot wait, Amy, my aide is right up here. If you email her at the email address district1@ocfl.net, we can answer any other questions for you. And I know our consultant's going to share with you how you can weigh in on the park after you get up here tonight as well. He's got a website set up and all of that. So having said all that, thank you all. It's really exciting to see you all here, and I'm anxious to hear what you see our park looking like.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Joe Webb. I'm with the company AECOM. I'll try to recognize Nick Kuhn and Ruth and Chaya who are here with us, you know, in somewhere in the crowd. But wow, we were trying to estimate how many people would be coming. We walked in, we said, oh my God, it's a gigantic room, and really wonderful to see it. I mean, I do a lot of these presentations, and one of my biggest challenges is sometimes when there's apathy and we don't get lots of people turning out. That's not our problem today. So we are here to talk about Horizons West Regional Park. We have a very simple agenda. We'll talk a little bit about the background and purpose of what we're doing. We are right at the beginning of the process. Getting a little feedback, is that better? Closer? Okay, I'll try. Trying to get the background and purpose, kind of an overview of our process.
Now we don't have them at all.
Okay, I'm back. Overview of the process. Again, we're right at the beginning, but we'll try and set forth for you what's going to be coming up and how you can stay engaged. We're going to take some questions. We'll try and answer questions. It's a big crowd, but somewhere between the questions and where I hold this mic, we have a lot of interactive exercises. You know, when it's a large group, it's hard to get all the ideas down. So we set up a whole bunch of stations. It includes a lot of different ways to try and give your input, but we're certainly open to any input in any fashion through this process. So the purpose, pretty simple stated, you know, developing a master plan to guide the immediate and long-term phase development of Horizons West. The purpose of this meeting is to hear from you. You know, we're here to really facilitate a process of listening, to take the input of the people that live in this community, who care about this area, who care about the park, and to hear from you to help guide our process. I'm trying, but I don't know if closer is better or further away. Again, let me see here. There's been a lot of things that have gone on, and this is just for brief overview, that, you know, this park has been conceptualized a few times. There's been some ideas that have developed going all the way back to 2003. There was further plans that were kind of put together. You know, those are good for reference, but really today we're going to start over. We really want to have this to be an open, transparent, and inclusive process. I don't know if this is me. Okay. Closer? Works better? Okay. Today we really want to hear from you, and we want this process to be driven by community input. I have a pretty loud voice, so does that work?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. It's still feedback, but we're going to try and get through it. Think it's so much? No.
Or maybe practicing the
word. I will try it. We'll keep it down here and we'll see. Yeah. Okay, we're going to keep going. We're going to draw it. Okay. Again, another conceptualization of it, but that's not to say that has any meaning today other than it's good for reference. There was a park system master plan done back in 2016, again as reference. Some of the things that came up at that time. Now, 2016 is a long time ago as we look at the development and how rapidly things are growing here. But there were highest rated features, walking and hiking and biking, playgrounds, splash pads, nature trails. You know, that doesn't preclude anything. That's what people said in that survey at that time for this area. As we see a lot more development coming in, sometimes we see more active things. That was the people of 2015, 2016. Again, piece of development. I think you can pick out where the little blue circle is. Rapidly growing Edinburgh, the fastest growing region in the country. There's just no question that there's a lot going on out here. You can see, really this area is just exploding, and it's even surprising from the first time we came out here to the times we've done most recently. So, certainly want to be careful in choosing things that are towards the future, realizing the rapid development that's happening. In the survey again, if you can see, sometimes this is the way we portray the information that comes out of surveys, but across the bottom is what's most important to you, and what's top and bottom is what's unmet. What things do you not have that you wish you could have? So when we look at it, as if you look at the upper right quadrant, it's what's the highest importance to you and what's the most unmet would be the upper right quadrant. It says, wait, it says, I'm sorry, natural areas of wildlife habitats is the #1 facility. That's probably different today. And educational life skills, family rec, outdoor adventure programs, adult fitness and wellness were the top priorities. That's reference. We're open today. We've been asked to refresh and completely look at everything out here. So your input, everybody in this room, is critical to us really moving forward with this process. Again, many of the things that you see here, this is just from the survey of that time. Again, for reference. But here's our site. As you see the large map here, it's a big site, 215 plus or minus acres of property. It is a very terrain. I mean, for all of the area out here, it's beautiful. If any of you have been out there, it's a beautiful site. A lot of natural areas. There's certainly a lot of species, beautiful lakes and other things. So we're going to try and recognize the naturalness and the beauty of the site as well. But with that, turn it over to Nick. Turn it over to my friend Nick here to talk a little more about the map and the process.
All right, and hopefully this looks, that's getting out. Very carefully hold this. Just to orient everybody, I know we sometimes get turned around as we travel around our day, and just how close we are to the site itself. We're in middle school, so we're adjacent to the site, just on the east side. So rarely do we get the opportunity to have this size of meeting in such proximity to a new park. So this is great. Many other things that are going on in this area. You've got the Walmart shopping center down here in the bottom corner. So that's some of the orientation of this space. And then in the yellow line, you can see the Hamlin Grove Trail road that's currently under construction. And that's going to be completed soon. So that sort of forms the northern border of the park site. Other than that, as Joe mentioned, it's sort of a blank slate. Now, we want to certainly honor the landscape that is there today. And in some cases, somewhat disappearing in this area of the county. But we do want to hear from you all tonight on those ideas that you'd like to see out here. We have an incredible opportunity. So with this size group, I'll cover some of the directions for the exercises up here, the 4 different stations here at the end, and provide some directions. But I'd like to make sure that before you leave tonight, if you have any ideas, any comments, anything, please do not leave without sharing those. So either write them down on these maps. We have comment cards at the table at the sign-in, and we have some comment cards up front too that you can grab. But we also have the project website that will show how to access that here in just a moment. So I want to talk a little bit about the master planning process. We're going to try to keep this just a very brief up front because, again, tonight is about listening to you all and sharing your input. This is the overall process. It's about 12 months in length, and we started in March. So we'll be presenting a completed master plan with all your input to the Board of County Commissioners by February of next year. That's a fairly rapid process, but we want to make sure throughout that we're taking the time and checking in with you all to make sure that we're hearing things right, that we're getting things correct in terms of what are your needs, what are your desires for the park. So this is just the first, these little sort of yellow diamonds show the checking points that we're going to have. And so we're at the very first one, May 1st. And our next one will be as we start to dive into the actual master planning process. So we'll have some ideas, we'll have some sketches, some images, things that you'll be able to respond to. So for right now, we're trying to collect your ideas. Next step will be listening to your feedback on those ideas. We'll try to refine those, make sure that we interpret those into the landscape that is the site there today as best as possible. And then we'll produce a document, and that'll be available online for review. And we'll post that up and do a series of presentations, and we'll conclude with a presentation for the community as well. And we'll collect information again, make sure that we have a nice bow on the master plan, and that we have a implementation plan to move forward with the various phases for development of the park. So as we all know, we like to see the plans, but at the end of the process, we want to make sure the project is going to move forward and things get built. So we'll be planning those steps, and we'll be outlining those as part of the conclusion of the master plan. So right now, we are in the site assessment, and there's a number of items that we're working on concurrently right now. We have a number of, what I'd say, physical site assessments tasks going on. So we have crews out on the site, surveying, delineating wetlands, looking for gopher tortoises, really documenting the site and making sure that we understand the opportunities and the constraints that are out there. The second part is the public engagement. That's what we're kicking off now this week. And we have a series of websites, online surveys, the community meeting tonight, and we have a series of focus groups that we'll be conducting with stakeholders throughout the next 2 days as well. So we have a series of sort of launch activities over the next few days. The master plan development is in the second phase, and what we'll be developing in there, we're looking at opportunities and constraints of the site. We'll start to identify what we call a programmatic plan. So we'll start to see all the different activities and facilities that we hear back, that data shows that we can support that site, that we can find a design, a concept that works. We'll start to lay those out and how they function with one another. So we want to make sure we're not putting conflicting uses with one another, or that we're looking across some of the site constraints, and so we're making everything sort of a jigsaw puzzle at that point, putting everything together. The master plan document itself will also include a phase implementation recommendations. We're going to look at funding and potential partnerships. A project this size, typically what what we're seeing around the country is a lot more partnerships out there in terms of other stakeholders that are helping to, either through donations or other arrangements, can have an amenity or a service provided at the park that can still help provide something that could make Horizon West a truly unique park itself. We'll also look at maintenance and operations. And then finally, a final document. So those things help us tie together to what I would say to make a really realistic plan to move forward with. So out at the site right now, with that, we've got, as I mentioned, a couple site assessment tasks going on. We're doing the surveys out there. We're looking at any kind of floodplains or taking soil samplings. We're trying to be very, very thorough. We just started that again in March, and that'll take us through early July. And then after July, we'll be able to launch into some of the master planning activities, and that will allow us to then check back in mid-November with opportunities and alternatives for the site. Part of what we're also looking at right now in the early process is looking at other precedent parks, not only in Central Florida or Florida, but also nationally. So we've really cast a wide net and looking at parks. This is a little bit of our criteria that we're looking at specifically, but I'll pass on to Joe here to talk a little bit more about that effort and some of the other parks.
Yeah, so what we affectionately call as planners best practices and lessons learned is really just a fancy term for asking other people who have recently done similar things, what you learn, what would you do differently, what would you know, what really worked out great. And we've identified a few things. How come it was easy for you? It was no problem for her, and that was fine. You know, we're looking at some, we particularly chose a couple here in Florida that we think are very comparable, and there are some really great items about these. I don't want to get too far into it, but you know, there's some recent large regional parks that have been built across Florida that really help us to learn. And when we go out and we talk to those people, we're hearing some very specific things. You know, fortunately in the Parks and Recreation community, people are pretty eager to help one another. Reach out, and I spent almost 2 hours on the phone with someone from the Great Park in California. Just what did they learn? What would you do differently? What happened? And we try and compile that together in what we call lessons learned. So we hear all of this great stuff about North Collier Park, but what actually could we take away and use here? Different scenario, different people's desires, but we're hearing some really good input. North Collier, you know, it almost looks somewhat similar in that there's part of it's natural, part of it's going to be very active. You know, I don't want to get into too far of it, but there's some things that they regret and some things they do a little differently. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, let's just learn from that. For Aronson Park, also another one with an amphitheater, with an aquatics facility, some other things we heard from them, you know, about making sure that you're ready, you're prepared to operate and maintain it if you're going to build it. You know, that was one of their struggles. Certainly Piedmont Park in Atlanta, a lot to learn there. As Nick had alluded to, and I think the Commissioner is well aware, you know, there are different ways. Not everything has to be done the traditional way of Orange County's going to buy the land, build a park, do this stuff. There's a lot of other creative ways. Piedmont Park is a conservancy, and it's been there 100 years, so we can learn what they've really kind of taken advantage of park-early language. In 1989, they formed a conservancy, and it made a huge difference in their ability to move park forward quickly, make a lot of improvements, attract a lot of financial help. And again, a very comparable one, this is out in California, but this is in Irvine, California, but what is being affectionately referred to as the Great Park, Orange County Great Park. Again, a lot of lessons learned on how we are creatively getting the park developed in cooperation with other entities, partners, conservancies, P3 redevelopment, public-private partnerships, public-public partnerships. So we're trying to take all that information in and take best information that is most applicable here and dividing that down to how this can help to get this park moved along. Not 100 years like Piedmont Park. I don't think anything's ready to wait 100 years. That's how long they've been working on it. The Great Park has really been moving ahead rapidly for 5. So, where are we today? Is this back to you? Back to my friend.
All right, now it's working again. All right, see if I can repeat the performance here. For tonight, what we're doing is where are we today? And so this is, again, highlighting the very first of what will be 3 check-in periods. This is the launch. This is where we're asking for your input and ideas tonight. So that's launching off. As I mentioned, we're doing a series over the next couple days of focus groups that we've asked folks, stakeholders, other civic organizations, others that are specialists or professionals in these various fields, or community members that can represent some of these ideas that will help us, that we're checking in and making sure we're hearing what is most important to these groups, what are some of the ideas, and what are some potential partnerships that are out there. Again, these series of focus groups are essentially what we're also doing online. So you can share these ideas, or any that would like to post your ideas or comments online on the website, and I'll show you guys here next on just how to access those. So we have the website horizonwestregionalpark.org, and that is a site set up that we can, we'll be populating that as we go throughout the project, so we'll be updating that on a regular basis. So we're launching it right now, and you can see upcoming meetings. So at the very top will be the next meeting that's there. You can add that, you can register to sign up, and you can add that to your calendar. You can find out the location. So it's very user-friendly, and then just below that is an online survey, and it's 11 questions. Takes about 5 minutes to go through or less, but that gives us a good idea of a little bit about yourself, your household, what's important for you to have out in Horizon West Park, and those are really good feedback for us. The very last question is if you'd like to register to have additional updates via email. If you'd like that, be sure the very last one, you provide your email contact, and we'll be sending out communication. We won't bombard you with those. We'll keep the list private. It's just for this project's use. But we'll have those update all on here. There's also some summary information about the project on there, and some of the information I just presented for those, especially in the back. If you're not able to see the screen, the information regarding the process and the timeline, that's all on the website. And then also the next meetings, the public meetings, there's a timeline at the bottom too that shows where those are all coming up. And so the survey itself here, it'll be up through June 21st, so we have some time, but I would encourage you all to tell your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, to provide their feedback as well. The handouts up at the sign-in, there's a little newsletter sheet. There's QR codes on there. You can scan that, or around the website. You can also complete the survey. And the very first question is a little map that shows us generally a location of where you might live. So that gives us an idea. Are we capturing people that are close to the park, or since this is a very large regional park, are we capturing folks throughout Orange County, or even other counties or other areas of Central Florida? So again, where we're shooting for is the February of 2020 timeline for the completion of the master plan document. And we'll be checking in just before presenting that to the Board of County Commissioners. So we'll have that opportunity to really check in and get the last feedback, and hopefully Our goal is that it's very reflective, as Joe mentioned, of a very transparent process to include ideas and thoughts on this master plan, and that we'll be able to celebrate a very successful master plan and really get invigorated for the next phase of work for phase one of the project. So I'll open it up for questions here in just a moment. But I do want to, before we start breaking up, I will let folks a little brief overview of the exercises. So I'll go over those. We have 4 different stations here. And the very first one is station 1, right up in the front. You'll see a sign with the station number and some directions on those signs. So I'll give you a little overview of some of these. We have next to this big aerial of the site, you'll see a whole bunch of different stickers. And each of those stickers, we have about 50 different activities and facility types for parks. We would like you to take those and place them around the site. And what do you think might be a good location where you would like to access some of those activities? And you can place in our aerial as many as you like for those activities. We ask just one each of those activities. And so if we have a soccer fan out here, we ask they'll put pin soccer stickers around there. Keep it down to just one, but you can do as many activities that you would find as interest or you would like to have in the park. And then you can, again, place around if there's something that we don't have a sticker for, write it down, circle it. We have markers there as well. You can, again, don't leave without providing your comments. Feel free to write on anything that we have paper-wise. Please don't write on the tables, though. We'll make sure that school is nice and clean. Station 2 is right next to that. And so, again, this is, you can use stickers again, or you can write on there. But we would like you to outline what are the 3 most important amenities or activities that you would like to be able to do out at Horizon West Regional Park in the very near future, like now, or on the other side, sort of long term, maybe 10 years out. So we want to start to get an idea of what you think are maybe the 3 most important that you would like to see potentially in that phase 1, and then some of those that might be phased a little bit later. That starts to give us a little idea of what is most important to your household. And again, you can use stickers or you can write in those items right on a big piece of paper there. Station 3 is the second row of tables. And this is a general write-in, but we're asking you to think big, as Joe mentioned, about some of the park precedents. Some of them are newer parks, some of them, like Piedmont Park, are 100 years old and have a long legacy behind that. But these are all very successful parks. And as Joe mentioned, some of them have maybe lessons learned out there that are good or bad, but we want to make sure that Horizon West Regional Park is the best park. And what we want to make sure is we want to hear from you about what could make Horizon West Regional Park that best park. In Central Florida, in Florida, in the country. What are your ideas? What is something that really can make that unique? And you can write those down on that piece of paper in markers or pens, and let us know what those ideas are. And then the last section, number 4, we have some tablets, and a few folks are already plugging away at those. This is perfect. We have the website up and survey going on there, so you want to drop in and fill it out on the tablet. You can do it right now, or you can scan the newsletter with the QR code, and I'll take you to the website. You can complete it on your phone, or you can do it at home. But we ask that, again, you can complete that and register that if you like, and provide your input, and then help spread the word. Let folks know that it is online and ready to be used. And with that, that really completes our presentation part.
And we're here to answer any questions that you may have. We're not going to pretend that we know everything. I think through the commissioner's plea, if we can focus on the park, we know that there's other things. June 6th is coming up for issues that we know are in the area for road widening or intersections or police and fire. Tonight, if we can focus on the park, that would be wonderful. So we'll take some of your questions. If you could be a little patient before we get too much activity running around over there. But after a while, if you want to start to do some of the activities, we welcome you to do so. So between us and Matt and the commissioner, hopefully we can answer whatever you may have. It's a large room, so any questions? Okay, awesome. Well,
Can you say the question?
well,
What's he asking?
okay, so the question is about the traffic in the area? Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to. Yeah.
Could y'all do me a favor, since it's such a big room and so many people, if you have a question, could you queue right here? And if you could, make sure that we're keeping the question on process, because this night is all about input from y'all. So if you're going to ask about what's going to be in the park, we can't answer that until you all give us some input. So thank you.
You should work with me. The question was, you're trying to create a successful park, that's fantastic. But the real question is, what's the impact going to be on the neighbourhood when it is a successful neighbourhood park? In other words, are we going to get hundreds of thousands of people coming here every day, which will have a big impact on the area?
Good question. The advantage to this park, and you are correct, this is a regional park. It's not just a neighborhood park or just a community for this park. You'll get people from all over the region. Because of its location, and now that that Hamlin Road is in, right off New Independence and 429, for the people that aren't coming from this community, from Horizons West, the majority of it will be coming off of 429 onto Hamlin and straight into the park and not going through any of the residential streets. I think the only people that would be, not the only, but I think most of the people going through the residential streets are going to be the people that live here in Horizons West. Yes, sir.
I got it. Oh, okay, you want it? Okay. Just one question that probably a lot of people don't have the problem. My property floods right up against the park. Is there going to be a buffer between my property and the park itself?
We haven't gotten that far into the process, but that's a very good comment. We certainly want to be a good neighbor, and something we can certainly get with you on. And if you'll, did you sign in at the front? Yeah.
If I could add to that too. So obviously we're going to have to make sure that we're sensitive to the folks that are already here. And that's a big piece of how we need to figure out what goes where. And so part of what the consultant has asked you all to do is show on the map where you want certain things to be. So that's why we want that input, because we do recognize that there are homes here already that have to be sensitive to that. And in terms of how much traffic, we do recognize that there will likely have to be improvements to Tiny Road, and that is in process already. And we do recognize that we need to, whatever goes into this park, we need to have an understanding of how much traffic it will generate. It's very early days. I don't think any of us can tell you definitively what that looks like yet. But those are considerations that we're taking under advisement as well. So, but for sure, you know, let us know which property is yours so that we know. Right. Because there's a lot of passive. Right. I think everybody agrees that there's a lot of passive uses that we want in this park as well, and certainly we would want to put those passive uses next to areas where there are already existing homes. But again, it's really early days, so that's why we're getting those input today.
But right now, that road is flooding my property now. The new.
So if we could sidebar on that, I can talk about that. But let's keep the focus.
Yeah. I got two things. The amphitheater, I just wanted to ask you, if you do go with it, I would say it would have to be closer to 429, because the amphitheater, okay, because if you do go with that, because the traffic over here is going to, I know there's no way we're going to handle it. The other thing is our rec center, right? We got so much building going on, and I know, I've read your bio, so I know you got good contacts. Why don't we get builders and maybe Disney? You can get there's a lot of rentables commercial where you could ask to help build it for us, right? And then maybe we do the interior, but they do the exterior, and we can make a beautiful rec center.
I was wondering, is the land already seceded to Parks and Rec, or is this just a plan that's contingent upon approval? What's the, is it done?
We have a 50-year or 100-year lease with Orange County and the city of Orlando, and it's renewable forever and ever. So it's park property. Yeah, great, good question.
My question is about accessibility. Was playground accessibility? Yeah. Well, the playground did not mulch, but all of the communities here, they all have mulch. Nobody has, like, not cement, but it's a different kind of material. It's a rubber with it. All wood chips. Great comment on that.
Okay. Yeah.
So for the horseback riding people in this area, is the walking, hiking trail going to also still be for horseback riding?
These are all great questions about what's going to be in it and what's going to be accessible. That's why we're here, so you can tell us. So we can't tell you definitively until we get your input. So if that's important to you, then make sure you are there.
We're starting out with a blank slate, okay? White canvas.
Pretty big. It's interesting that you brought up similar venues from other zones, areas, regions, and states. Did you look at what their utilization numbers are like? And have you done any type of forecasting for what the utilization of our 215 acres here in the park area would be?
That's part of this process. Coming up with a... Yes. No, we are just beginning. We have till February to present all that.
Yeah, is your intention to be like a competitive sportsplex backstop night games as well as lights?
Well, I think to reiterate what Commissioner and Matt said, that's what we're here to hear. You know, what your questions is probably better said as a statement. If that's what you think, you know, please tell us. I know there's probably lots of different recreational activities or ideas for the park, but we're really here to listen to that idea.
Again, if you have questions about our process tonight, we're happy to answer those. If you're in line and you want to ask about what's going to be in the park, we cannot answer that until we get y'all's input. So if that's what you're in line for and want to ask about, please go ahead and put your stickers on here so we can get your input. So we're talking about the process tonight, about how we're going to get to the end product. Does that make sense? Does that help you? Okay.
You talked about focus groups. Who are your focus groups and how are you determining?
Yeah, let's go back. So,
Some of us are more, run amok group in the area and trying to wax. So we could be a potential focus group. How do you guys choose who's in the group? Yeah.
So she's asking how you participate in one of these focus groups. Obviously, if you're in an HOA, then you're going to want to do that. If you're in a Rotary, then we're going to engage those folks. So if you look at which of those areas and let those organizations know that you have an interest in being part of that focus group, then you'll be included.
Obviously, we're not going to rent 250 acres. How are you going to keep midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock people, drug activity, sex activity, anything else that's going on? How are you going to keep that out?
So that's a great question. And Matt, maybe you want to speak to how we manage that in our other parks?
We manage security and safety differently in other parks. Some of them are all fenced in, just depends. law enforcement, off-duty officers. The park will be safe and secure.
So the question was law enforcement, and again, I'm going to have law enforcement at June 6th at Whittier High School to talk about their patrols out here and numbers and all of that. Happy to have you contact them as well ahead of time if you want to. So it's just a matter of logistics. We want to make sure that we move the park through as quickly as we can. You'll get a chance to ask law enforcement about their patrols on June 6th, because they're not here tonight. Ma'am, if we could let the next person talk, you and I can go over here, okay? Okay.
You guys have 215 acres, and I know that the Orange County Library Department has been looking for a location. I'm just wondering, if it's something that the town like the area really needs is a library. You may not think so, but as a mom with young ones who go through the library programs and who comes from Connecticut where there were many library programs, it would be really nice to see something local to us where the Orange County has not been able to find an affordable space. I mean, 215 acres seems like they'd be able to forego 2 acres for library.
Again, I think that sounds great. I love libraries too. Tell us. We have some conceived ideas.
The question is the slideshow should be on the website.
Andy? Yes. The slideshow will be on the website? Yeah. Okay.
Like, it doesn't even matter if that's really a great concert.
Well, I'm going to answer that. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to preserve the native. Lots of, and I think what Nick had expressed is there's going to be a matching of wants and desires with the opportunities and constraints of the site. So to a certain extent, we're still out there mapping where are the endangered species, where are the native habitats. You know, that will be a part of the consideration. I don't think anybody wants to denude the site or level it out. We saw some of the early renditions. It was very much just level it. And I think the commission has been clear that that's not her intent.
Somebody else mentioned the utilization of other parks you're looking at. A lot of parks are in the build, they put in soccer pitches, softball courts, baseball courts, but we already have a saturation of that in the local area. Have you guys thought about doing something with wide open spaces, minimal floodlighting? I fly hot air balloons and there's nowhere for us to take off or land the hot air balloons. So things like that where we have a saturation of sport pitches and sports complexes, instead of looking at like Collier and other places where it's all about the big soccer lighting and stuff like that. Why not have a more natural feel with minimal lighting and open space, sports trails, something more natural?
Yeah, and I mean, build on what the commissioner said, we're not just looking at these different places, we're looking at different ideas. We recognize and we have people on this, recreation economists and others on our team that consider the saturation and what might be most appropriate. One of the things in park design right now is flexibility, keeping it so that it's not just one use. So, yeah, appreciate your coming. All in favor?
When do you anticipate opening the first set of amenities to the park?
So that's going to be largely determined by what the company picture looks like. Part of what the consultant has to look like as public-private partnerships and what we can leverage in the community. And that will have a big impact on how this actually gets built on the other end. So that's part of the discovery process we'll go through this year as well to determine who in the private sector may want to play in the public-private partnership to get certain amenities out of the ground. So I don't know if we can answer that definitively yet, but it is something we're looking at. And at the end of the year, we should have a better grasp of timeline for you. Not at this point, we don't. It's just really going to be dependent on how much the private sector decides to come to the table. To the best of my ability, I want to make sure that we're leveraging public-private partnerships and not just putting the tax burden on the taxpayers. So it's a lot of that's going to get framed out as we have have meetings with all of those stakeholders throughout the year.
I just wanted to ask a little bit further maybe about the necessity, the idea behind more of the commercialism that might take place in the park, such as like a paved amphitheater or, you know, venues that you might have to pay a fee to use, that sort of thing. You probably heard earlier a lot of the dissatisfaction with a lot of the close neighbors, if anything, like a loud concert venue with traffic and noise in particular, and basically what comes with that. I know you had some comments online that talked about something on the scale of what if you made a comment with Tampa amphitheater and I don't know off one chair. So I was just wondering if you could speak more about that and, you know, kind of maybe alleviate some of the concerns. Nothing scary like that happening.
So the comments were meant to make sure that everybody's thinking big in terms of what we could do in this park. They were not definitive in any way to determine that it's going to happen, but certainly I don't want to take it off the table until we hear from the community as to what they do want to see happen. It's not often that we have 220, 215 acres to put a park together such as this. So I didn't want people thinking we need a couple tennis courts, we need a couple ball fields. I think we do need some of those things. But I wanted them to think to the level of maybe a New York Central Park or something on a large scale that's very iconic for that region. And so that's why I threw that out there, not to say that it's definitively going to happen in any way. And if the community does decide that that's the direction that we want to go in, then as part of that, we would have to address what that noise looks like and what that traffic impact looks like and make sure we have a plan for it. So it's not the intent anywhere along the way to just stick an amphitheater out there and say, now deal with it. I do recognize that there are a lot of residents out here already that don't want that disruption. So if that becomes the will of what the community wants, we know that we're going to have to look at how we're going to get in and out, how we park them, what would that look like, what would our noise travel. All of those things would be things that we would have to consider as part of the process. Does that help? Okay. And I absolutely understand that y'all are here and it impacts you. So anything, including ball fields, including Little League, including anything that might be out here is going to have an impact. And once we get our arms around what the community wants, we as Orange County are going to have to look at what we would need to do to mitigate that impact. So I don't know that I can answer you definitively until we get all the feedback we need to in terms of what needs to be in the park. Yeah, I've heard it. Thank you.
I think you touched on most of what I wanted to mention, especially with the amphitheater talk that there is. This is not, as you know, Horizon Talks is not a gated community. So all of our homes are open to whoever it is that just wants to drive up, decide to park on my street because maybe they didn't want to deal with parking in the park or whatever expense that parking may have brought onto them if it is an amphitheater. I think that's probably the most nervous part of the plan that has been mentioned, is having that element right in our backyard. A lot of us are basically in the backyard of the park. So things like security, parking, keeping it away from our homes for noise. There's a lot that needs to be thought of, and I'm sure, and I would hope that you're all planning on thinking about all those things, but we have to make sure that they're voiced because we do live here. So at the end of the day, some of you may not be here and you're gone, but we're still here.
I would think that we all hope and know that Commissioner Speaker also that the park will be an asset. Nobody's hoping to build something that isn't a complete, gem to the area. So yes, we understand. Yes, we understand that there are impacts. Maybe it needs to be at a much smaller scale. Maybe it doesn't need to be there. Nobody is going to try and impose on one night. We really want to provide the most activity and the best benefit. I think the commissioner's desire was to think that sometimes people get out of scale when they're thinking of parks and you get to 200, 300, 1,000 acres. Forget the tennis court is that big. So it's encouraging thinking big, and that's great. Nobody is trying to make anything other than a mess. Yeah.
my concern is, I think it already been voiced by some, but I just want to make sure that we're taking this in the context of this is a small area where people live, and making sure we're really focusing on the impact of traffic, calls, crime, et cetera. Just so that our
And I take your point, absolutely, I take your point. Again, the reason I brought those cars up is because I want to make sure you all understand the scale. This is not just a couple of ball fields and a tennis court and maybe a swimming pool. This is 215 acres that we have. And I want to make sure that what we do, we have the opportunity for it to be iconic for our area. So I want to make sure people are thinking big and not, we have a stamp that says it's a park and we stamped it 11 times because it's 11 times bigger than the next size park we have. So again, the comments were intended to make sure you all are thinking large and thinking more regional than just a pool, a ball field, a tennis court, that kind of thing, but we're thinking larger than that. I also want to make sure that we're sensitive to the Avalon Rural Settlement just to your north, where they've got a lot of pedestrians. So we want to make sure that we're connecting both communities together too, the more rural with the more suburban too. So those are all the considerations we're thinking about. Absolutely